You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
You're listening to the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Sabres Edition, your source for all news, press conference reactions, analysis, and objective discussions regarding the NHL's Buffalo Sabres from right here in the Niagara region. Here are your hosts, Brandon Caputo and Austin Broad.
Hello once again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another installment of the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Sabres Edition right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, your November 18th, 2020 edition, your source North American sports coverage by sports fans for sports fans, delivered to you right here in the beautiful Niagara region. Find us on social media for updates, giveaways, and sponsorship promo codes each month by following the podcast on Twitter at Armchair GM Pod, as well as this show's podcast at AGM Sabres Pod, as well on Facebook and Instagram by searching the Armchair GMs. Listen to us on our main platform, which is Spreaker.com, and the free Spreaker app by searching the Armchair GMs. As well, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, CastBox, and Deezer. You can find us on all those platforms. And lastly, check out our beautiful, user-friendly website, armchairgmsports.com, for all things regarding our network, including articles, podcast episodes, sponsors, and contributors. Everything's on there for you guys. Very easy to navigate. So wherever is most convenient, if you listen to us, please give us a like and subscribe on that platform. Give us some love. And now, as always, I'm one of your hosts of the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Sabres Edition, Cappy. You can follow me on Twitter at Caputs13 of the Canadian Zed. And I'm always very pleased to be joined on the Sabres portion of the network by my good friend. He is Austin Broad, a contributor for the ChargingBuffalo.net. You can follow him on Twitter at Austin_BroadTCB. Austin, welcome back for another Sabres episode.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been there's been a few good things in the news for the last couple of weeks. So there's some stuff to talk about. I'm sure we're ramping up. We're getting closer to that potential January 1st start date that everyone thinks is the target. So everything's starting to look up. Hopefully things continue to be positive and there continues to be more stuff in the news.
Absolutely. So what we're going to talk about today is, I believe in our last episode we were discussing some of the arbitration that was about to go down for the Sabres. RFAs, Olofsson, Reinhart, and Ullmark are all back with the Sabres and have all been settled with their arbitration contracts. So they are back with the Sabres. We're going to discuss that in the first segment. We're also going to discuss, obviously, the big news this week was the return of the Goathead and the Butter Knives for the reverse retro jersey for the Buffalo Sabres. So really excited to talk about that. I already talked about that in our second segment. And then as well, we're going to talk about a couple of Sabres that have made Team Canada's selection camp for the World Juniors for Team Canada coming up this winter. Should be exciting. Hopefully we'll see both those guys on the roster, but we'll discuss that. And then we've got a juicy rumor involving a trade from a very, very elite player in the NHL that has some ties to the Buffalo Sabres, and what that would look like if the trade were to be made. So you're going to want to stay tuned and listen into that. So with that being said, this first segment today is brought to you by J&L Flooring, a Niagara-based specialty flooring and design company. Simplified processes and making homes beautiful are their specialties. 905-358-3299 or jnlflooring.com to start today. Jack's a big Sabres fan, so he always loves contributing to this Sabres podcast. So make sure you're checking out J&L Flooring, you Sabres fans. He's one just like us. So with that being said, Austin, let's take a look at the contracts for Victor Olofsson, Sam Reinhart, and Linus Ullmark, who are all back with the Buffalo Sabres.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they were on the verge of arbitration, but Kevin Adams did pretty good and managed to get all of them under contract before they got to arbitration. Olofsson, the only one that was more than 1 year, but I think he did pretty good. He locked him up for pretty much about what I expected. He kept all three of them under $13 million, which everyone thought was kind of that sweet spot of where they would be. So I think he did pretty good. The Sabres still have some cap space to work with after those moves. I don't know if there's going to be anything on the horizon for the Sabres before the season starts, but I think Kevin Adams did relatively good with those 3 contracts.
So out of the 3, we have Olofsson for 2 years at an AAV of 300. I don't know why we keep seeing hundreds. I wish we could get them signed for hundreds of dollars. But $3 million per year for Victor Olofsson, 3.05 for 2 years. We've got Sam Reinhart back for 1 year at 5.2, and Linus Ullmark for 2 years at an AAV of 2.6. So for 1 year at 2.6. So which one of those contracts, Austin, do you think was the best out of the 3?
The one that I think was the best out of the 3, I mean, I'm going with Victor Olofsson. I think everything about that deal was a home run. He got him for 2 years, which is pretty good, and I like that at the end of that 2 years, he is still a restricted free agent. So Olofsson seems to be tied to this organization for a long time. Reinhart is obviously still an RFA after his 1-year deal, but he's also 1 year away from being a UFA with his next contract, so that one scares me a little bit. But Adams is betting on the team being good. He's telling Sam, here's a 1-year deal. We're putting all our eggs in this basket for 2020, 2021, and we're going to try and be good. So everyone who's worried about Sam's 1-year term and that he's close to free agency, if the team is good this year, you don't got to worry about that. Sam's not going to want to go anywhere. But I understand that fear. So I'm going with Olofsson strictly because he's got 2 years and he's still an RFA after it.
And with Linus Ullmark, Austin, we've obviously got Carter Hutton under contract for 1 more year. Linus Ullmark, do you think that there is going to be possibly another move for a goaltender, or do you think that Ralph Kruger and Kevin Adams are set with Ullmark and Hutton in the net for 1 more season?
I would hope that they're trying to explore some kind of upgrade for the goaltending situation. Like Linus Ullmark, he's 27. He's got a 1-year deal at 2.6 before he's a UFA. I'm expecting a big year from him. He knows how important this year is for him, whether he's the goalie of the Sabres future or just an NHL goalie and going forward with another team. This is a big year for him. But based off of last year, I mean, I think an upgrade is plausible. Like if the team does get better goaltending and some improvements on that defensive group, based off the forwards that they've added to this team, they could be very good. But it depends on the goalie situation. Knowing what it was last year, that Hutton had that eye problem and he got surgery to fix it, whatever. If Adams is doing his job properly, he's still looking at upgrading that goaltending.
Mm-hmm. So we'll have to see if Linus Ullmark is going to win that starting job from Carter Hutton this year. The way he played last year, I think that he deserves to have the job over Carter Hutton. But there was also talks out there, when the jerseys were released, we'll get into that. But Ryan Miller approved of it, and I know a lot of Sabres fans here. Ryan Miller is a fan favorite, obviously, when he was traded during the tank years for the Sabres. Do you think that there's a chance for a Ryan Miller reunion here in Buffalo for a good reason, not just, do you think that he's over the hill and it's not worth it, or do you think that it's worth taking a shot on a guy like Ryan Miller that would want to come back to Buffalo and kind of finish off his career where it started?
I don't think Miller's over the hill, and, based off nostalgia, that'd be a pretty cool move, but I'm not saying, I do think he's an upgrade over Carter Hutton, but at this point in his career, signing a guy like Ryan Miller is when you have that bona fide number 1 goalie who can play 65 to 70 games, and Miller's only got to go in there for limited action. Right now, based off the Sabres' current goaltending situation, I just don't think signing Miller makes sense from a hockey standpoint. Not that he's not good, not that he's washed up, because I don't think he's either of those things, but the Sabres don't have that stud in goalie this year. They need 2 goalies that can play, basically almost a 50-50 split based off of the way things have gone, and I just don't know if Miller can handle that big of a workload right now.
Do you see a possibility in this scenario where Linus Ullmark is guaranteed to be the starter this year? They end up trying to find a team to take on Carter Hutton as a backup goalie to try to shore up somebody's backup goaltending position, and they go and sign Miller and tell him, you're going to be the backup and the mentor for a guy like Linus Ullmark who's going to carry the torch and net for 60 or whatever games. Do you think that is a possibility, or do you think A, Ullmark won't be able to handle that workload, and B, they probably wouldn't be able to find anybody to take Carter Hutton? I mean, he's only on a 1-year deal, and then trying to convince Ryan Miller to come back and basically be the mentor backup goaltender. Do you think that that's a scenario that's possible, or do you think that is just kind of wishful thinking?
I'll attack that in 2 different things. I do think Carter Hutton is tradable. He's got decent numbers. He's shown that he can be a pretty capable backup. He's only got 1 year at less than $3 million. So I do not think he's untradeable. I do think he is very tradable. But based off the few names that I heard the Sabres were linked to in terms of goalies, like the Columbus was a team that they were really looking at with, Mers Lickens and Jonas Corposalo. Those guys are younger guys who the teams view them as a potential number one. So just based off the type of goalie that they were looking to acquire, not that they doubt Linus Ullmark, but they clearly do not think at this point in time that Linus Ullmark can handle the humongous workload that a bona fide star number one can handle. And that's not a knock on Linus Ullmark. I mean, look at the Dallas Stars, their run to the Cup Finals. They relied on Anton Khudobin. They were a tandem team in net. So that is capable of being, that is a smart strategy to use. But just based off the names that I think that they wanted to acquire, it just seems like they want to get a bona fide younger goaltender who can handle that 45 to 50 game workload to split with Linus Ullmark. Just because until he shows that he can do it, I don't think you should trust Ullmark to start 60 games.
Okay, and I mean, we obviously know that in a few years, hopefully, if things go right in the development stages with Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, that the Sabres have their franchise goaltender waiting in the wings in a couple of years when goaltenders take a little bit more time to develop and just the nature of the position. So, do you think that that plays into the decision as well to not maybe go and trade for a young goaltender because they still believe with all the resources that they put into Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen that he's going to be the guy eventually here to be the number one goaltender?
Oh, based off everything we've seen, yeah, I think they're hoping that he is the guy, and he's so far, I know his numbers weren't, dazzling in the AHL, but he's been solid in every league that he's been in. He's doing very well in Finland right now. He's clearly the guy that they're putting all their eggs into that basket. But I think they're looking at, maybe a little bit of a younger guy to be that bridge guy, because if you look at Ullmark, he's got 1 year left. Unless he shows drastic improvements, I think they'll just move on from him. Hutton's gone. Jonas Johansson had a limited, not very successful stint with Buffalo, and then the only other goalie on their roster is Dustin Tokarski, who's basically just here so they can expose him come fantasy draft time. So it's Ullmark. This is a big year for Ullmark for the Sabres to see what he is and if he can be that bridge guy for when Luukkonen is ready to take over the reins.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of good points here about the goaltending. So we'll have to see if a move is made by Kevyn Adams, because it seems like that's going to be the question mark for everybody. Is are they going to upgrade this position, or are we really going to go into the season with an Ullmark and Hutton tandem? And that's going to be very scrutinized and the area of the team that's talked about a lot, because they've made a lot of improvements on the forward side of things. They've made improvements on the D-core that was already pretty solid to begin with. So I really think that goaltending position is going to be the question mark that whether this team's going to be a playoff team next year. So we'll have to see if that goaltending position is shored up, or if Ullmark and Hutton are going to be able to, prove people wrong and carry that load. That's remained to be seen until we go into the season. But if any more news on that happens, we'll for sure be able to bring it to you. But with that being said, we're going to take our first commercial break on the show today. We're going to come back and discuss the brand new reverse retro jerseys from the Buffalo Sabres and our thoughts on those jerseys. So stay right here. We'll be right back on the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Sabres edition right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano, serving traditional-style Italian pizzas made with the freshest, top-quality ingredients. Loaded subs and their famous chicken wings. Winners of the Reader's Choice Diamond Award, 4 years running from Niagara this week for Best Pizza and Wings in Niagara Falls. Home of the best tray and wing combo in town for the price and quality. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m., located on the corner of Drummond Road and Dunn Street. Available for call-ahead pickup or delivery at 905-374-4400. Make sure to like them on Facebook and view their website for their menu at carmine'spizzeria.ca. Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano. Way too good. As we all adjust to this new world that we're living in today, masks are now mandatory, and Niagara's own Custom PPE is Canada's leading face mask provider. Visit them online at customppe.ca and choose between several mask options with different colors and sizes. Add your organization, company, or team logo so you make your face masks unique. Available to purchase online 24/7 at customppe.ca and shipped within 1 week. They have the best prices and quickest turnaround in Canada, and no order is too big or too small. Also offering custom floor stickers as well as face and counter shields for your business or workplace. Visit customppe.ca and use the code ARMCHAIR at checkout for 20% off your custom or blank face mask today. Custom PPE, Canada's leading face mask provider. Attention job seekers, if you are currently looking for work in the Niagara region, you owe it to yourself to check out the services provided by the Niagara Employment Help Center, located at 6100 Thoroldstone Road, Niagara Falls, directly across from the Camisos Plaza. Their free services include resume and cover letter writing, community resource and referral information, local labor market information, job search strategies, assistance with clarifying employment training and career goals, employment counseling and job search support, second career information and registration assistance, and all their services are currently provided by appointment only. So give them a call at 905-358-0021 or visit their website at ehc.on.ca, the Niagara Employment Help Center. This Employment Ontario program is funded by the Government of Ontario.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network, the Niagara region's best local source for North American sports podcasting coverage. By sports fans, for sports fans.
Alright guys, welcome back to the second segment of today's Niagara Hockey Lowdown Sabres edition. Cappy and Austin back with you here. This segment today is brought to you by Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano, home of the best pizza wing combos in Niagara Falls, Ontario. Call today at 905-374-4400 and check out their website, carminespizzeria.ca. This month's promo code is ArmchairOnion for 10% off your entire order when you call for call-ahead pickup or delivery. Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano, way too good. Austin, let's take a look at what everybody's talking about. That is the return of the quote-unquote butter knife jerseys, and they're going to have a little bit of a different look from the 2000 edition of the jersey. It was red with black and white, obviously with the Sabres colors being that back in the day. It is now being changed to white, blue, the royal blue, and the yellow that the Sabres are going back to, the vintage royal blue jerseys from the 70s, which I really like that look. So basically, from the Sabres website, this is what they said about this jersey. The Reverse Retro program in the NHL is a NHL-wide initiative, which all 31 teams will wear throwback jerseys with a remixed color scheme. Jerseys will be worn multiple times during the upcoming season. Our goal from day one has been work with the NHL and all these teams to bring creativity, innovation, and energy to the sport with all that we do. What better way to do that than bring us together with nostalgia of historic moments in each team's history with something new via designs that have never been seen before in the sport. So every team had a throwback to a certain era. Everybody in our I guess from our generation, Austin, was crying for the Goathead to come back and the black and red jerseys. They gave it to us, but it's going to be with the vintage colors. So in closing here, what I'm going to say is, obviously, I would have loved to see the Goathead on the front of the jersey with the butter knives being the shoulder patch. We still got the word Buffalo across the bottom of it, which I think is a really nice touch. But again, I think just like the Sabres did with their home and away jerseys, I think they did a solid job with this reverse retro, and I'm happy that we were able to get that era back in somewhat of a Sabres jersey. It's not going to be black and red, but I think it's still a very nice jersey, and I give them 2 thumbs up for it.
Yeah, see, I'm in the same boat. I do like seeing like that shoulder patch, the Goathead. It looks really nice in the new colors. So I can see why people were hoping that would be like the main logo. But I really like the approach that they did with this butter knives jersey. It was basically the first alternate that the Sabres have had. The year 2000, the red, white, and black. It was the first time that I can remember. Like you said, our generation, that was our first alternate jersey. So I like throwing it back to that. I like the inclusion of the the 90s font, the Goathead shoulder patch, and I do, maybe it's just me being wishful thinking, but I think it's a little bit of a teaser showing that Goathead is a shoulder patch that, hey, we can start using this logo, and I think that when the Sabres do get a full-time alternate jersey in the near future, again, just wishful thinking, I think it's going to include that Goathead logo as a pretty big centerpiece.
That would be great. Obviously, we're going back to the original look for the Sabres with the royal blue and the yellow. I really think that's a nice look, and I really think that it really pops as well with the Goathead. I think, mixing that we how many times have we seen people on the internet try to, kind of recreate those jerseys with the new colors, but I think the Sabres did a really nice job with incorporating the old colors with the black and red Goathead, and you know what? I think it looks really nice. I think it's, I'm actually more pleased with it than I had expected it to be. I thought it would look kind of weird with the blue and yellow colors, but I think they made it look really nice, and I think once we see that jersey in person, it's really going to pop, and I got to give them a lot of props for this. I think this is going to be a real nice jersey, and a jersey that I might want to pick up myself as well.
Yeah, 100%. I haven't bought a jersey in a long time, but after seeing that reverse retro, I'm thinking about it for sure. Most of the league did a really good job, but I think the Sabres, based off of, it's a weird year. They had to introduce their new royal blue uniforms and then a reverse retro. So it's kind of a weird thing to have 3 new jerseys come out, but they did a really good job on all 3. And this reverse retro, we'll see how many times they actually wear it throughout the season, but it's going to be really cool to see the new colors with the one of the jerseys that we grew up watching.
And it's interesting because I think that they were definitely in the top tier. I when I did my tier list for the jerseys, I put them in the second tier. I think they were really nice. I probably would have put them in the top tier if the Goathead would have been on the front, but that's just my personal opinion. But I still think they were on the upper echelon for the reverse retros that came out. There were some pretty bad ones, including that Anaheim Ducks, and the Leafs one was really bad. The Islanders one sucked, and there was another team that was really, really bad too, and I can't think of it right now. But it could have been a lot worse after seeing a couple of these jerseys that these teams released. So for the Sabres, I'm glad that they're not on the bottom end of something once again. And for the jerseys, again, like you mentioned, releasing 3 in 1 year, that's really tough. So, but should pay dividends for them. The fact that people are going to be able to spend that much more on 3 new jerseys that they're bringing back.
Yeah, absolutely. It's first of all, I know we're Sabres fans, but I have to mention that Toronto Maple Leafs reverse retro jersey because that's not very good.
Junk. Absolute junk. And I don't even, I like Leafs jerseys. There are Leafs jerseys that I like as much as we don't like the Leafs. They've had some really nice jerseys over the past. If they would have done that Winter Classic Leafs jersey that they played against the Red Wings, in the big house, that would have been beautiful. But they basically combined a 60s and 70s jersey, and it looked like one of those knockoff jerseys you buy from one of those sketchy websites. It was horrendous.
Yeah, between the Leafs and the Jets and the Isles, those 3 teams were just 3 big misses. But I've got on record saying that original 6 teams, their normal jerseys, Toronto included, they're some of the nicest sweaters in all of sports, and I love the simplicity of it. It just seems like with the reverse retro, the Leafs tried too hard. And same with some other teams. That's why I really liked that the Sabres stuck with the design that was popular amongst Sabres fans. Let's face it, if you're not really a Sabres fan, I can kind of see why you're okay, that jersey is a little bit strange. But as a Sabres fans, that jersey is awesome. I think I had them in my top 10 of all the reverse retros. I think they did a really good job. And it seems that, like you said, releasing 3 jerseys at once, you can kind of, dry up your own market. It doesn't seem like that's going to be the case with the Sabres jerseys this year, which is, I guess it's a very good thing for the Pagulas because they desperately need some fan favor from the fans. And these 3 jerseys and with some of the moves that they've made, they're on the right track. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, I thought about that for the Senators as well. They also released their new jerseys this year and had to do a reverse retro. So they're kind of in a similar situation, but very good job. I thought Adidas did a fantastic job. I hope the NHL continues to do stuff like this, every couple years, bring out a new jersey, because it's, as much as I'm not a huge fan of the NBA, their uniforms and the fact that they can continue to generate fan interest like that, it's really cool. So I'm really glad that the NHL and Adidas are kind of moving towards that.
I think the retro jerseys are always good to bring back for not only respecting the heritage but also respecting the fans from different eras that come together to support a team. I think it's always very important to show that you still care about the history of your organization and throwing it back to old jerseys. I think, like you mentioned, if you're not a Sabres fan, you don't really understand it, but if you're a Sabres fan, you understand why they went the route that they did, because this was what the fans wanted. They wanted a black and red type jersey, and although they did not get the Goathead on the front, I think everybody is still pleased with the way that they were able to honor the fans with what they really wanted and what would sell. At the end of the day, that's what matters, is what would sell. We saw with the 50th anniversary last year, they released some black and red stuff, and the times that I went to the Sabres store, that stuff was all completely sold out. So they obviously saw that and used that as a marketing tool and said, we need to release something like these black and red jerseys with that logo, and we can sell a ton of these things.
Oh yeah, 100%. I picked up two black and red hats from the Sabres store during the 50th anniversary. Like they did a very good job. I mean, like you said, they know what's going to sell. They're using that royal blue color scheme to appeal to the original fans. They're using the red and black jersey, template that appeals to like us, and they're kudos to them. They did a good job on this, and it's you got to give the organization credit when they deserve it, and they do deserve it for how they've handled the uniforms this year.
Absolutely. So 2 thumbs up for the Pagulas as far as the jerseys go. Other stuff, that's to remain to be seen. But as far as the jersey stuff goes, I think they did a very good job, and the Sabres fans should be happy and pleased with the work that their team did. I think it really captured what we wanted as Sabres fans. So with that being said, we're going to take our last commercial break on the show today. We're going to come back and discuss a couple of players that are going to be we're going to be keeping an eye on when Hockey Canada opens up their selection camp for the World Juniors coming up in December, and as well we got a juicy trade rumor to talk about, so you're not going to want to miss that. So stay around, and we'll be right back on the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Sabres edition, and right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network.
J&L Flooring is a Niagara-based specialty flooring and design company. They take great pride in providing elite customer service and support. They are a specialty flooring and decor boutique shop with a beautiful showroom, great pricing, and a wide variety and truly unique selection of products. All their products are environmentally friendly and responsibly produced, so you can feel great about your flooring choices. Their goal as a local business is to build authentic relationships based on honesty and integrity that they foster with respect and authenticity, offering unique and wide range of quality products presented by a knowledgeable and patient team. They connect with their customers to simplify the process to make their life easier and to make their homes beautiful. Visit them at 4424 Montrose Road, Niagara Falls, or find out more at jnlflooring.com. Open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. through 5 p.m., and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. 905-358-3299 J&L Flooring.
The Spicy Olive Bar and Grill is located on the top of Clifton Hill and just a 5-minute walk from the majestic Niagara Falls. It is conveniently nestled in the heart of the tourist district. A family-owned and operated business, the Spicy Olive opened its doors in May of 2003 and has since been established as an authentic and unique Italian restaurant and bar. Its rustic ambiance and time-worn finishing provide a warm and inviting dining experience. Offering an array of delicious dishes, they specialize in authentic Italian cuisine, homemade sauces, fresh ingredients, and consistently providing a strong foundation on which they build their menu. As night falls, the Spicy Olive shifts to a lively lounge where drinks and live music come together to make a perfect evening. For more than 15 years, they have provided not only for their dedicated locals, but their customers from all over the world with authentic Italian food and great live entertainment. Open daily 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. for dinner and till 2 a.m. for drinks. Check out their new menu and book reservations on their website at Spicy Olive Bar and Grill, it's with an E at the end, .com, or call 905-371-2323 for reservations as well. The Spicy Olive Bar and Grill.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network, the Niagara region's best local source for North American sports podcasting coverage. By sports fans, for sports fans.
Alright guys, welcome back to the final segment of today's Niagara Hockey Lowdown Sabres edition. Cappy and Austin back with you here, and I want to give a shout out to to Ivan from Guitar Logic for this great remix of the Sabres Dance intro, Austin, which is the new intro music for the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Sabres edition, as we cannot copyright and use the actual Sabres Dance song itself. But I really like this remix that Ivan did from Guitar Logic. You can check him out on YouTube. I really think it's a nice little remix for you here, and love using it as the intro to our show, so we're going to continue to use that. And again, thank you to Ivan from Guitar Logic for letting us use this glorious remix guitar riff of the Sabres Dance. But with that being said, this last segment today is brought to you by Custom PPE, Niagara's leading face mask provider. Best prices and quickest turnaround in Canada, both from right here in the Niagara region. Order today at customppe.ca and use the code armchair at checkout for 20% off your entire order. We got some great face masks made up for the Armchair GMs. They look great. Whatever you want on it, you want to get some custom Sabres ones, some custom whatever you want. You can literally get whatever you'd want on it. I don't know. I'm trying to think of something stupid, like whatever the Leafs just did on their jersey. You can even get that on their face mask if you really wanted to. But with that being said, guys, make sure you're checking them out. 20% off your entire order if you want to get some custom face masks made at customppe.ca. But with that being said, Austin, let's take a look at Dylan Cozens and Jack Quinn being named to Hockey Canada's National Junior Team Selection Camp roster ahead of the World Junior Hockey Championships in December. What are you thinking of Dylan Cozens and Jack Quinn's opportunity to make this team and to showcase themselves and to showcase the Sabres on a very big stage, the national level that everybody will have eyes on, as it'll be the only hockey going on. It'll be the first time that we get hockey back before the NHL even starts up, or the OHL for that matter. So what do you think this opportunity would mean for Cozens and Jack Quinn?
Well, yeah, Cozens, I feel like is he's a virtual lock. He was on the team last year and he played extremely well. He was one of their better players. Returning this year, seems like he's going to be. I would have pegged him for the captaincy before Kirby Dach was released from Chicago. So I think Cozens is going to have a really big role this year. He's going to be a big part of that team. Quinn, he's going to have a really strong camp to make an impression on this roster. I mean, there's some really good players. Quinn, being 19 years old, may play into whether they keep him or not. Having that extra couple spots for forwards because of the pandemic might help him get on that roster. But obviously no disrespect to Jack Quinn, but just typically based off the players that are returning and, the potential for Doc already being released, and potentially imagine New York allows Lafreniere to go to that tournament. That's just another huge roster spot being taken up. So Quinn does have a path to the roster, but it's obviously a little bit harder for him. And I think it would mean a lot to Quinn because I don't believe he's represented Team Canada on any level at this point in his hockey career. So if he can find a way to get on that roster, it would be absolutely huge for him.
Do you think, and we don't like to make this assumption, and you'd hope that everybody would make the team for the right reasons, but do you think that Andre Tournier, being the head coach for Team Canada this year, being Jack Quinn's coach with the Ottawa 67s, do you think obviously that helps his chances to make the team, as Tournier knows what Jack Quinn can bring to a team?
Oh, I mean, look, Quinn is an amazing player, and if he makes the teams, I know it will be for the right reasons, but how does that not play into this at all? Tournier would know how to use Quinn. He would know where he excels. He would know how he fits into this roster, and he would know what type of role Quinn would be comfortable playing, and he would also know if Quinn was comfortable being that extra forward who maybe doesn't play but is just there. So, I mean, Tournier, as long as Quinn plays well in the selection camp and shows that he's earned a spot, Tournier, if he's deciding between Quinn, a player that he knows, and somebody else, all things being equal, I'm sure the coach is going to go with the player he knows. That's just because that's the way that hockey works. That's the way that the world works.
Mm-hmm. And it is a very stacked Canada roster this year, especially on the forward group. It's going to be very difficult for somebody to make this cut. It's not a year where you basically piece together the roster. There's a lot of talent that might get cut from this forward group for Team Canada this year, Austin. We discussed it yesterday on our Hockey Canada episode, but it's interesting because I think every player that on the forward group, I think they had about 12 or 13 first-round picks that are going to be at this camp on the forward group alone. So that's going to be pretty ridiculous and difficult for some of these first-round picks to even make the roster, which is incredible to think of.
Oh, exactly. Like this this year, like we always talk about the lockout years for the NHL being like the potential for Team Canada to ice their best roster. But this year is potentially greater to ice an even better roster. I mean, Byfield's going to be on this team. You know, Kirby Dach didn't even have a chance to play last year because he was so vital to Chicago. And now he's going to get to come down and play in a junior tournament after having a whole year of NHL experience under his belt. Like, Kirby Dach should be one of the most dominant players at this tournament. Imagine Lafreniere does get released. He was amazing last year, even though he was hurt for a little bit. But he's the first overall pick. You know, he's one of the best, probably the best junior player in the world right now because he's let's just face it, he was dominant on every level. Like, if Team Canada has a chance to ice their best roster, it's almost just, and it sounds like participation ribbon-y, but it is truly an honor to be one of those players that is just invited, knowing all the circumstances and the fact that Team Canada could potentially be icing the best roster that they could literally possibly have this year.
And where do you think this leaves Dylan Cozens? Do you think that, with his experience and with what type of player he is, do you think that he's going to be a guy that they lean on to be the number 1 or number 2 center on this roster?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. It was like the one roster projection I actually saw had Cozens on the top line playing on the wing with Kirby Dach at center, which would be very cool to see because, as you and I have talked about and most people have talked about, Cozens is probably going to start his NHL career as a winger. So getting to watch him play, this junior tournament on the wing would be cool for me to see because I can see how he plays the game at a different position. But, if they're going to go center heavy, I think Kirby Dach's got that number 1 center position locked up, but I could easily see Dylan Cozens being that number 2 guy because he is one of the better players. He's played for Team Canada before, and he's shown to have success on that stage. So I think he's either going to be on that top line right wing or that number 2 center for Team Canada.
Mm-hmm. So we'll have to see what they end up going with the line projections, but I think Dylan Cozens is going to have a big role on this Team Canada World Juniors team this year, and I think he's going to really showcase what he's going to be able to bring to the Sabres one day. I think it's a very exciting spot for Dylan Cozens and Jack Quinn. Hopefully he can make the roster as well, but like we mentioned, it's going to be a very tough camp. A lot of great players are at that camp, so if Jack Quinn can make it and get a little bit of favoritism from Andre Tournier as the head coach, maybe we'll see him on the squad as well, maybe even as an extra forward to start off the tournament, but we know that he can be a lethal goal scorer paired with the right people, and you never know, maybe we could end up getting the fantasy booking of Cozens and Jack Quinn playing together, Austin. I know that's very wishful thinking, but one could only hope.
Yeah, exactly. One could only hope. And another good thing from this tournament is we're going to get to see Sabres second-round pick J.J. Peterka play for Team Germany. He was there last year. They released their camp invites, and he was on that list. So if Quinn doesn't make Team Canada, there's still a very strong possibility that we get to see two key Sabres prospects playing at this tournament as well.
Beautiful. I'm glad you mentioned that because I had totally forgot about J.J. Peterka, but that would be nice for Germany. And I believe they're in Canada's group, so we will be seeing some Sabre-on-Sabre action if we get to that point. So we'll have to talk about that when we get to it. But let's get to this trade rumor, Austin. Again, this is just spitballing trade rumors here, but we have to talk about it. It was released on November 12th. The headline of the article, Patrick Kane trade the Sabres makes sense for all involved. Austin, I know you've had a second to really look at this article a little bit. Obviously, this is a little bit clickbait-ish, but I mean, it gives us something to talk about here at least. And Patrick Kane, obviously being from the Buffalo area, growing up a Sabres fan, there's even a quote in here from Patrick Kane saying, "I was probably even bigger Sabres fan just watching from the sidelines. I've got a lot of good memories in that rink playing mini sticks with my buddies in the hallway and missing periods because you're out playing mini sticks." So, what are you thinking about Patrick Kane? And as a franchise mode type move here that you'd make on the NHL video game, where do you think Patrick Kane would be slotted with the Sabres, and what kind of compensation do you think that the Blackhawks would kind of have to receive in a trade like that? Given that he's got such a big contract, maybe the Sabres could leverage that.
Yeah, I mean, like this rumor comes up actually quite frequently the last year or two. Let's face it, Patrick Kane is still an elite player. He still produces at the highest level in terms of offensive ability. He's not super old. He's obviously not in the early stages of his career, but he's still producing at one of the highest levels I think we've ever seen from an American hockey player. Just the thought of him being in this lineup, obviously you can start to imagine, I mean, Hall is here, so I can't imagine. Like, I mean, you could theoretically ice a line of Jack Eichel, Taylor Hall, and Patrick Kane, which would just literally be insane offensively. The compensation is where it gets key because Kane has such a high salary, and with Chicago pretty much blowing everything up, would they be willing to retain salary? I mean, I think he's only got 3 years left on his contract, so maybe they would, but I mean, you're going to have to send out some money. I don't know if, Masmus Mistalainen or Brandon Montour are types of players that they'd be looking at because they're UFAs in a couple years. You'd have to be looking for, obviously, draft picks, an established roster player, and some young stud prospects. And if I'm the Sabres, I'm not sure if I want to part with that unless I can part with Rasmus Ristolainen, a first-round pick. And the thing with prospects is, for the Sabres, unless the Blackhawks want defensive prospects, the cupboard is relatively bare aside from you're not giving up Dylan Cousins for Patrick Kane. At least I'm not.
I've got the trade, Austin. I've got it ready to go here, and I want your thoughts on it.
Let's hear it.
Casey Middlestat, Kyle Okposo, and Matt Irwin for Patrick Kane. I mean, they get the money back in Okposo. I mean, you get that. You get Casey Middlestat, who obviously, if he develops properly, like the Sabres had hoped as the 8th overall pick, maybe he could become something. And they get a defenseman from their... I would definitely throw in somebody a lot better than Matt Irwin, but I think that would be the type of trade that they would kind of... have to do. It would be like they'd have to give somebody, like you mentioned, with money, because Kane's making so much money. They'd have to give up a prospect, and like you mentioned, unless you're not giving up Dylan Cousins, so they'd have to take defensive prospects unless you can really sell them on a guy like Casey Middlestat, and then you'd kind of have to give them, since their defense, it's kind of getting older with Seabrook and Kane. I mean, Seabrook and Keith, you would have to give them one of your top 4 or 5D, I'm assuming, and it would have to be a pretty good one at that point. So would the trade even be worth it for the Sabres at that point, with all the money that they're taking back as well?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if I'm the Sabres, I want to shed some salary, and the last thing I want to do by shedding salary is, I don't want to shed salary just to take on a bigger contract. Obviously, Patrick Kane is an all-world talent, an all-NHL talent. I mean, that could obviously... Taylor Hall changed everything for the Sabres, so if Patrick Kane became available and wanted to come home, I'm sure that would change something for the Sabres. But like you said, unless you're giving up... You don't want to give up Cousins. You're obviously not giving up Quinn because he was the first draft pick that Kevin Adams ever selected. Aside from that, you don't really have great forward prospects. I don't even think Casey Middlestat has trade value around the league, and no disrespect to Casey Middlestat, but that's just what has happened with the way his career has gone thus far. I mean, so unless you're giving up, a Ristolainen, a first-round pick, and a Sam Reinhart, I don't know if it gets done. And if that's what it costs, to be honest, as good as Patrick Kane is, I don't want to give up a younger player to get a... And again, Patrick Kane is producing at an all-NHL level. He is absolutely amazing offensively. But I don't know if I want to give up a younger 25-year-old player like a Sam Reinhart, a prospect, and a first-round pick to get an older player. Does Patrick Kane make a difference for this team? Yes. Is Patrick Kane the piece that makes Buffalo a Stanley Cup contender? No, because let's face it, as much as we love the Taylor Hall signing, simply adding Taylor Hall has not made the Sabres a Stanley Cup contender. They have so many other holes that I don't think adding to their offensive talent at this point really we'll almost be talking about Buffalo the same way that we've talked about the Maple Leafs is. Buffalo's top 6 is now extremely good. No one can argue that Buffalo's top 6 is elite. It's their defense and their goaltending that is the reason that they're not considered a contender right now. And adding Kane doesn't fix your goaltending.
No, it doesn't. I've got 2 points on it. I've got the fact that they've only got $3.4 million in cap space. You have Taylor Hall. You don't know if he's going to re-sign next year. Maybe you have a better picture if he leaves after 1 year. I think another thing with Patrick Kane is that I'm trying to get into his contract right now. Are you certain that it is 3 years left?
I was looking at this. Came up on Buffalo Sabres Twitter out of nowhere for some reason.
I've got it up. It's 10.5 for the next 3 years. He's 31 years old, so he'd be 33, 34 by the time the contract would end. I think in that last year, you could start to think about a rumor like that, because I think at that point, the Blackhawks are going to be winding down. Their core is already kind of disappointed with the way that their management has handled things with Kane, Taves, and Seabrook and Keith. I mean, obviously they're going to have to start over at some point. That was their core of their dynasty that won them so many Stanley Cups during the last decade or so. So I think in that last year, you could possibly make that rumor, and it would be more enticing because the Blackhawks would be able to probably eat some salary on the last year of that deal for Patrick Kane. So I think until 2022-23, I think we can kind of put that one to rest unless something drastic happens in the next year and a half, 2 years. But I think I do think that Patrick Kane would like to end his career with Buffalo. I think that would be really nice to see him come home to play at least one more year. He's not going to be near as effective as he was his whole career in Chicago, but I do think that would be great for the city of Buffalo, having such an elite player finish off his career from Buffalo, in Buffalo, and could definitely sell a lot of jerseys with that as well. So I think, given the right circumstances, I think Patrick Kane on this team, maybe in a couple years, when the Sabres are hopefully in a contending mode, kind of near the end of his career, I think that he could bring a lot of value to this roster.
Oh yeah, if we're talking, yeah, exactly. I'll be willing to take this conversation a lot more seriously if we're talking about 1 year left on his contract. He could either be a rental for the Sabres that year, or they get him the year before, or maybe they wait for him to become a UFA and they sign him a la the way Toronto signed to Joe Thornton. I would like to see, it would be cool to see Kane finish in Buffalo for sure, but until Buffalo figures out what they are as a team, until Kane is not completely fallen off a cliff, but until Kane is not producing at an elite level where you can get him for a reasonable contract, it just doesn't seem to make sense right now.
Yep, but it was good for a little 10-minute discussion there for 100%. Us and the fans to have something to talk about there. That it's kind of dry right now, so I'm glad we were able to find a rumor like that and just kind of pick it apart there and talk about the good things and the bad things about it, because we're going to need to talk about some stuff the next month with what's going on with the NHL and what's, they're not playing right now. So we're going to start to see things like that pop up more and more about rumors and trades, just because people need something to talk about. So if we find anything else, or if the Sabres are able to make any more moves, maybe they go and find that goaltender that we were discussing earlier in the show. Maybe we'll be able to come back and have some more interesting stuff to talk about. But as for that, I think that's basically it for today's show, Austin, unless you have anything else that you wanted to add or finish off with.
No, nothing really to on the burner right now, but I'm hoping there will be something in the next week or two so you and I can get back on an episode, because it's always fun talking Sabres.
Mm-hmm. And I know you've got something in the works on the Charging Buffalo, Austin. You want to quickly plug what you got going on there and what we might expect from a future article from you sometime soon? Yeah,
so I'm working on it right now. I spent the last couple weeks tracking 5 Jack Quinn games from throughout the season, and obviously you and I have been able to see him a lot. We know what type of player he is. We've been able to see him. We've been able to, we haven't been able to talk to him. We've tried, but we've been able to see him live. There's some myths about Jack Quinn that I wanted to look at, to either confirm or, debunk. So I tracked a couple of Jack Quinn games. I have some data and I have some scouting reports. I'm going to put all my thoughts into a big article. There's going to be some video breakdowns, some charts, a whole bunch of stuff, just for fans to get a better idea of what Jack Quinn actually is as a player.
Beautiful. So we will retweet that out once it's out on our Sabres Edition Twitter account. Again, make sure you're following that at AGM Sabres Pod for all updates and all episodes that are posted for our Sabres portion of the network. So please make sure you're following that. We put a poll up as well. I forgot to mention that at the in the middle of the show when we were talking about the jersey. But as for the poll, 52% of the people loved the new jerseys, 20 were indifferent, 20 were swapped the shoulder and the crest, which I was on that boat, and then don't like them 8%. So I'm sure those 8% were just a bunch of salty Leaf fans that hated the way that their atrocious jerseys ended up turning out. So for that fact, I'll take the 52% would love them, and we'll move on with that, and Leaf fans can continue to be salty about their knockoff, sketchy website jerseys that are now out. So With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap it up for today's episode of the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Sabres edition right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, your source of North American sports coverage by sports fans for sports fans, delivered to you right here in the beautiful Niagara region. As always, I'm one of your hosts of this show, Cappy. You can follow me on Twitter at Caputs13 of the Canadian Z. As well, you can follow my co-host Austin at Austin_BroadTCB, and as well, check him out at thechargingbuffalo.net. A big thank you to all of our great sponsors who help put us on, support the network, keeping the show on the air. Make sure you're checking them out and telling them that the Armchair GM sent you. Very important to support your local businesses during this time. They really need our help. And finally, to you viewers out there for tuning in and listening along with us for this episode. And once again, this has been the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Sabres edition on the Armchair GM Sports Network by sports fans for sports fans. We'll see you guys next episode.
See you guys next time.